Hi there. My name is Sue Nelson, and for the next half an hour or so, we're going to be talking about all things food and drink, but quite a lot about drink for this particular show. I'm joined by my fellow presenter, Ollie Lloyd of Great British Chefs, but I'm also joined by my guest today, Ollie Bolton of Watermelon. So I'm sitting between two Ollies.
You are. A lot of people pay a lot of money for
It's a bit sit between two Ollies, yeah. You're double IE, aren't you, Ollie? Because you're a little bit posh, but you've just got a Y.
Just a Y. Just less is more.
Less is more.
Quality, not quantity.
Yes.
I've got a Y in my surname, so I don't need another Y. That's the other thing, you see.
Like you knew that when you were born. So
Well, I was Oliver. I was christened Oliver.
Oliver. So, so I'm a rose between two thorns here because they've been giving me a load of trouble already. We haven't even started broadcasting it. Before we hand over to the Ollie Bolton of Watermelon, as opposed to Ollie Lloyd of Great British Chefs, Ollie, you're doing your Great British Chefs Cheese Awards, aren't you?
Yeah, the Great British Cheese Awards.
Are you in the middle of judging at the moment?
I'm pretty excited. We're pretty close to a brutal afternoon of probably trying 50 cheeses with about 15 judges. But
Good for your cholesterol.
really good for the cholesterol. But as you can probably notice, I've been taking a lot of turmeric recently, so I'm just looking that much more glowing as we.
Yeah, and you've been taking those seaweed tablets from last week.
I've only just
gorgeous.
come down.
You look
from my steaming.
absolutely gorgeous, Ollie.
Thank you. Yes, the Great British Cheese Awards is the only sort of consumer-led cheese awards where what we try and do is celebrate artisanal cheese, so people who are making small batches of really interesting cheeses.
And
so,
just British.
just British. And there's just so much innovation going on in the world of cheese. And, we had the guys from Renegade Monk on the other week,
Oh, that was fabulous.
which was really good, really good.
Stunk the studio out.
It did.
Marvellous.
But hopefully more people bought it as a result.
Hope so.
And we've got loads of amazing cheeses come through, and we're looking forward to sort of selecting the winners and raising my cholesterol.
Very good. Well, keep
Tough
taking
job.
those seaweed tablets. Maybe that
Yeah.
will offset some of it.
Yeah.
I was reading this thing in the newspaper this week, which I thought was, it's a couple of weeks old, but I thought it was really interesting. There's this guy called, I don't know how to pronounce it, Ptolemies, I think his name was. And he was like a really important Egyptian official 3,300 years ago.
Didn't know him personally.
Didn't you not?
No.
I think I would have known that. And he used to serve the pharaohs like Seti I and Ramses II. And he rose so high in Egyptian bureaucracy that he was buried in a tomb befitting his status, which was a 70-metre suite of chambers.
Nice.
Yeah, south of Cairo. His tomb was discovered in 1855, and lots of its contents were plundered, probably mostly by the British, I'm afraid.
Don't mention.
I know. And then his tomb got lost to the shifting sands. Anyway, they rediscovered it in 2010. And they found these I suppose, casks and vases, sort of thing. And inside it was this white stuff, and they weren't quite sure what it was. So they took it away to be analysed. And it was cheese.
Wow.
3,300 years. So this cheese, it's a hard cheese, has been maturing for 3,300 years. And that's with a sort of dehydration, and then there's flood, so it's being hydrated again. So there has been cheese discovered that's, fermented milk, but this was actually hard cheese. Now, hard cheese, as you know, is quite a process, isn't it? You don't leave it there and it becomes hard cheese. So they had it analysed, and it was a mixture of buffalo, sheep and goat milk. And quite a lot of technology going on, which people did not think existed before then. So it just shows he loved his cheese 3,300 years ago.
So maybe the Great Egyptian Cheese Awards could be the next thing.
I bet it had. I can't imagine you could
salty.
taste it now, could you?
No,
No,
probably not.
die.
I'm sure it's not, really ready for human consumption.
But it does show that even then we've got somebody who's got a bit of
Bit of
a bit of a
knowledge.
cheese love.
It is-
If
it's a
you were
great
buried
thing.
with a cheese, what cheese would you be buried with?
Do you know, it's probably a Chose, which is a French cheese. That's really kind of, it's just, for me, it's a childhood cheese. It's a cheese that my mother always used to buy. And it's got for me that fantastic thing, which it wants to walk off the plate if you leave it long enough.
Yeah.
And the thing you need to do is exercise a degree of discipline, which is when you buy them most of the time, they're not ready. So you need to
I'm
then,
not sure I can manage that.
so you have to then leave them in the fridge for a while. And then suddenly you discover them at the back of the fridge. You're like,
Oh, I forgot that.
nice to see you.
Other Ollie, what cheese would you be buried
That's a
with?
very good question. I actually recently subscribed to the Cheese Geek. And they send you a kind of monthly little box of different cheeses, and it changes. And I really enjoyed, is it Comte?
My favourite.
Yeah,
See, I'd be buried with that.
Yeah,
and again,
really
I'm
good.
so. Oh no, Bix. Do you remember Patricia Michaelman from La Fromagerie bought Bix on? That tasted amazing. I know I'd be buried with that actually.
Yeah.
But you'd like Comté, but
yeah, Comté. That's it. Yeah.
A bit of nice nuttiness.
Yeah. I loved it. Yeah, it was definitely the favourite.
Well, moving on from dying and being buried, should we talk about
sugar?
Should we talk about sugar?
Yeah.
There's a real shift at the moment, isn't there, about avoiding sugar? It seems like there's been quite a lot of campaigning going on, and then all of a sudden it seems to have hit the consumer market. Is that the research you're finding?
Yeah, I think, we did this research back in January of this year we asked a simple question, which we asked people to agree or disagree with, which is, I tried to avoid sugar, right? And then when we asked in January, 45% of the UK, right, nationally representative sample, 3,000 people, so pretty accurate data set, said they avoided sugar.
That's a huge leap.
Which is a huge number. And then we looked at that, January, healthy eating, maybe people are coming off the back of, Christmas and all the sweets and everything that goes with that. So we thought, let's rerun it as when we do our summer survey. And we asked it again in July. And it had gone up to 54%, which is like, wow. And I think you're right. I think we're seeing the same thing with plant-based eating, reducing meat, following more healthy diets. I think people are just beginning to understand, and we've talked about this a lot on the show, that some of the manufacturing processes and some of the things in products are just not what people want to put in their body, and they're just trying to make better choices. And we are trying to dig into that whole thing around what does avoiding sugar mean? Is that meaning you're not putting sugar in your tea? Is that you're avoiding high sugar drinks? Is that when you're making a recipe, you're reducing the amount of sugar? It was interesting. I was cooking a recipe of Nigel Slater's the other day, which was an orange polenta cake, and it had 150 grams of caster sugar and 250 grams of caster sugar and 250 grams of butter, and it was just too sweet. And it was a recipe from the Kitchen Diaries, which is quite an old book nowadays. And I'm kind of interested.
Do you think tastes have changed?
See, I think people are putting less sugar in, and I think that if you'd written that recipe now, I think you'd have probably had like 160, 170 grams of sugar, and would have cut it much, much further down, or even used it as a substitute. And I think people are, I think that stuff is changing.
So another thing in the news here is Kraft Heinz, huge company. They've just launched Springboard, it's called, which is an incubator platform dedicated to scaling and accelerating growth of disruptor startup brands. Do you think these bigger companies now are, seeing that there's trends like that and actually don't quite know how to respond? So they're sort of, kickstarting and funding people who come in and do something like that.
We've seen Diageo do it. Diageo do huge amounts of investment in, they famously backed Seedlip, and lots of these brands are aware that they've got a lot of cash reserves and they're trying to find clever ways of growing things. And the truth of the matter is, and I say this as someone who runs a startup, is that if you are trying to create something within a large corporation, the cost base is just significantly higher than if you're doing it as a startup. And therefore you can scale or fail rapidly and more cheaply, and that's kind of the name of the game, isn't it?
But they're sort of giving up having innovation in-house, it seems. I mean, Kraft Heinz here say that they've identified natural and organic, well spelted, that's been around for a while, obviously on the ball, aren't they? Speciality and craft, health and performance, and experiential as key categories.
Yeah. Well, they've done their research over the last 10 years. I think the truth of the matter is that if you are a large corporation, what you are focusing on is global scale and global domination. And therefore actually trying to create, sriracha mayonnaises is just not top of your priority because it's just going to take a lot longer. So you let things burn and you slowly identify the opportunities. I will say that Heinz's headquarters, which is just outside London, is one of the most beautiful pieces of modern architecture you've ever seen. It's sort of low-slung modernist building, which is quite stunning.
Well, let's put the conversation to an end.
Yeah.
Ollie.
I was giving you a segue back into the world we're supposed to be talking about.
So, Ollie, I've drunk your sort of watermelon drink, which I quite like, because I quite like watermelons as a taste. Now, watermelon as a fruit is 91% water. according to our research.
It's very true, yeah.
6% natural sugars. So you've got something there that's got natural sugars in it, but low in natural sugars, really. Although it tastes quite sweet, I think, watermelon. Could that drink ever have been developed in one of the bigger organisations? Do you think that would have been possible?
I don't think so.
I don't think it's seen the light of day.
I mean, well, it's interesting. There's often innovation that comes out of these big corporations that then fails, and they come too early occasionally. But I don't know of any of the big corporations who've tried anything in the watermelon space, have they?
No, I mean, I think one of the challenges we had with watermelon was finding a recipe that was stable and finding a production process that enabled the product to have a shelf life of any meaningful length. That took us about a year to find the right partner and to find the right processes that to work with the product and to get the 9-month shelf life that we have. So I think that's definitely a
9-month shelf life.
Yeah.
And you've got to do that, presumably, otherwise
we don't have to, but our
food service is going to be difficult to taking it on.
Yeah, exactly. Our ambition has always been to have products that are as affordable as possible and as available as possible. And if you go down, say, the chilled route, then not only is it more environmentally unfriendly with the refrigeration of trucks and storage, but the price is going to be more expensive, and you're restricted on where you can actually sell the product.
So when I go in, let's say at St Pancras Station, there's like a sourced market thing there, whatever it's called. I look in that chilled cabinet and there is rosemary water, there's honey water, there's dash cucumber water, there's coconut water, we've got watermelon water. And it's a crowded category. God, it's so difficult to make a success.
It is. It's incredibly competitive, and it's only got more competitive over the years. And I had a conversation with the Waitrose buyer about 2 years ago, and she sounded quite overwhelmed on the phone. And she said, look, Ollie, I'm literally overwhelmed with the amount of functional drinks, health drinks. They're getting in touch with me, and I just don't have the time to even talk to everyone or get back to everyone.
Yeah.
There's that much innovation happening in the market.
And she's sort of a curator in a way, isn't she?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think the other thing that's difficult is, and this is where I think it becomes particularly difficult for emerging brands like yourself, is that then you've got the Volvics and the Perriers and the Danones and all those guys who then go, ooh, fruit-based water, and they then throw a couple of million quid of marketing behind it, and obviously can pay the retailer fees that are required to get those big distributions. And that then does also further crowd out the market.
Because it is easy to copy, and copy not very well, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think with watermelon,
no one's copied it yet, have they?
There are a couple of other brands on the market, but the challenge is getting the quality products, and getting the production right. And there's one manufacturer in Europe that's capable of really producing a good quality product, and we've got an exclusive arrangement with them. So that helps us to a certain
degree. So in a way, what you've got to do is trying to protect your market, haven't you, in some way, or go to a route that is really difficult to source the natural product, something like that. But something that's quite difficult is going to protect your market position more, because lots of others are so easy to copy. I mean, if you look at Fever Tree, what's happened there. I cannot believe the amount of money that Fever Tree's gone for and has managed to overtake somebody who's a market leader. Because actually it is quite easy to copy what they've done. And
people have and people do. I think Fever Tree is, a phenomenal business. And I think, what Tim and Charles have done there is incredible. But the reality is there are now loads of emerging tonic water brands that are now trying to be like, ooh, I'm now using this rather than that. And it's like the problem with becoming big is then you lose your kind of cachet as bit like, no one would say, oh, you're using Nespresso nowadays, whereas 10 years ago it'd be like, oh, wow. And I think this is the problem with as you gain that scale, it's very difficult. But you're right. The question is, how do you erect barriers to entry in this world? And it's difficult.
I mean, I think with Fever Tree, because I actually met Charles right at the beginning of my sort of drinks journey when he just launched Fever Tree. And I think they had about a 4 or 5 year runway of no competition directly with premium mixers. So I think that gave them enough time to cement their position in the market. And by the time competitors came in, they'd already were dominating, and they were the household name, and everyone associated premium mixers with Fever Tree. But
it's interesting. You say that, but only the numbers, only 9% of this data dates back to January of this year, I think. Only 9% of the UK buy Fever Tree regularly.
It's like John Stapleton when he did New Covent Garden soup, and suddenly soup was in a carton. Easy to copy. It took a while, but he did have as you say, Ollie had a sort of runway where you've got a really short amount of time to establish a lead and then protect that lead like hell, which might mean that you start dropping prices, because that's another barrier to entry. If you manage to get your production to such a level, it becomes hard as a new entrant to come in at that price point. But you've got to look at marketing tactics to protect it, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think innovation, looking at NPD, looking at flavours, looking at pack sizes. So, for example, with watermelon, we've developed a pineapple flavour and a strawberry flavour and a mint flavour. So we're just talking to retailers now about that.
Watermelon pineapple flavour.
Yeah. Delicious.
Is it?
Yeah.
You didn't bring any though,
I saw it and I should have brought some.
As in, it's got a hint of pineapple in it.
A hint of pineapple, yeah.
Interesting.
So you've made quite a success of watermelon, but you obviously didn't want to just do that. Obviously, did you?
No, I mean we've.
So
it's our company, our positioning, our belief is to bring disruptive hydration drinks to market, and we have watermelon, and then we've developed this new product, Fact
Water, which we have in front of us. So I was giving you a nice little tee up there.
Thank you.
So I've got this can in front of me. So it's so your others are in cartons, aren't they? But these are in cans.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, watermelon's in a Tetra Pak, and Fact's in a can. And in a nutshell, it's an organic flavoured, zero sugar, sparkling water.
And it says on here, very nice.
Very nice, yeah.
Very nice. Cans are interesting, Ollie.
For recyclability.
For recyclability. But do you know what? They're becoming much more acceptable. So craft beer now in cans isn't frowned upon like it used to be. And I think the public are quite happy now to buy a can as opposed to sort of glass bottle for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah. It makes lots of sense from a recycling perspective and other reasons.
Keeps cold.
I mean, do you remember the guys we met from Can of Water?
Yeah.
Really nice guys, and they were trying to, do the whole thing about, hey, it's a can, it's more recyclable and stuff. But this is a really, this space of sparkling, water with flavouring is really, as we were saying, is really competitive. Like Volvic are on the game now. There are any number of different brands. I suppose. What are you guys doing to sort of, I suppose, trying to tell a different story?
Yes, I mean, I think, look, for us, we use a little bit of stevia in our product. So unlike, say, Dash and Ugly, I believe that the stevia brings out the flavours, the organic flavours more. So it's actually perhaps a bit more enjoyable to drink. But our key USP is we're the first. Almond is the first brand on. Sorry, Fact is the first brand on Almond, and Almond is our new traceability and reward platform. So underneath every ring pull, you can see there's a unique code, and that code is linked to that flavour and that batch. And if you scan that through the Almond app,
look, see. So I've got a little...
it's like a mini QR code.
Yeah, it looks like a tiny QR code.
Yeah. So if you scan that with our app, you not only get 10 pence as a reward, but it tells you exactly what's in that can and exactly where it's come from. And then we can do some fun stuff, like we can also look at your GPS location of the location of where you scan and work out the estimate carbon footprint of the can.
I'm trying to find it on my phone. There's no way that's going to work, right? No. I was going to try then, but so that's an interesting piece of.
But you say a platform, so you've launched. So Fact is a brand that is using the Almond platform.
So the Almond platform is a completely separate project, and it's actually being set up as a foundation, a non-profit foundation, and it was really inspired from becoming a B Corp 2.5 years ago with Waterbomb. So we were the first soft drinks company in Europe to be a B Corp. And to chatting to other B Corp brands, chatting to B Corp itself, and watching the importance of purpose in businesses and consumer products, and essentially trying to find a way to help purpose-led brands enter the mass market and enter the mainstream. And my belief is what's missing is having that economic incentive to encourage people to scan and encourage people to buy purpose-led brands. So that's what we're
so
trying
what
to
you're
achieve.
doing is, I mean, people who register as B Corp is actually quite difficult to do that. And B Corp, in a way, is almost like a quality standard or a flag that lets you know that this company does particular things. But lots of people don't go for B Corp as a thing. But what this platform does then is it allows people to go on, and you've traced that journey. So you've authenticated it, if you like, that they are a profit for purpose, and they're doing certain things. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So the brands on the platform are vetted.
Yeah.
But by being a B Corp, automatically you're welcome to join on.
Yeah, because you know they've ticked all these boxes. Yeah.
However, there are some other brands who maybe aren't affiliated with fair trade or with certain schemes who actually are doing business in the right way. So. And they should be on a platform. So we're actually bringing together brands, purpose-led brands from different certifications, all under one roof, but building in this reward mechanism as a way to kind of engage loyalty and to actually build in the financial incentives to encourage people to support these purpose-led brands.
Which is, which comes back to our conversation about how do you differentiate, and I think that is. I think that's one of the great difficulties is trying to, obviously you have not brands of your Evolution don't necessarily have the budget to tell the big stories that, say, a Heinz have the ability to tell. And so actually trying to find ways of using marks and using affiliations and groupings is a really...
These guys can't compete on that. It doesn't matter what your marketing spend is or how multinational and billion... dollar valuation you might have, you can't get on something like that because you just don't have those credentials.
No, but they can blow the water out of they can really make a very strong impact to say we are a sustainable led business, we're moving to this or that. So they can tell while the story may be less powerful, they can tell it more loudly. And that often might get them distribution, it might get them, it's the David Goliath thing here, which is you guys might have a more authentic story and a more value-based system story, but there are lots of corporations who are trying to move in those directions, and it's
But I went to this thing a few weeks ago, and there was somebody from some huge corporate financial services corporate saying how they were trying to do this and how they're trying to do that, and they're donating money here, and this woman was amazing, and clearly inside that company that's what she's trying to do. But you cannot disguise the fact at the back end of that, they're paying all their suppliers late. Or they suddenly write to everybody and say we won't pay in 120 days. And there's all these awful, dreadful, working things that they have underneath all that. And I still find it, transparently thin in terms of what and they need, if they're going to do it, you have to do it authentically because social media will find you out. It will. And I don't think they can compete with what Ollie's doing.
No, I agree with that.
Having said that, there are some really exciting larger brands who are B Corps, and like Unilever springs to mind, and they've been recently acquiring B Corp brands. But they there was a really interesting stat last year that 70% of their growth came from their purpose-led brands. I think they call them sustainable living brands.
Yeah. Which Paul Polman has been very. It's kind of where he's hung his hat. That is his story. That is his transformation.
That's an amazing business reason to do so.
No, of course it is. And then, you talk to some of the senior guys at Unilever, and they will talk about the fact that while combustible packaging isn't important today, it will be in the future. And look, I think these corporations. There are some of them who get this challenge, and there are others who don't. But
there's a really good business case.
There is completely a business case.
So to say that it's going to cost, you can imagine some of those board meetings when they say, "Oh no, we can't really do that. It costs a fortune. Put our prices up." No. Think about it in a much more strategic way.
But remember, we had the guy in the other day with the corn combustible.
Cornware.
Great company. And we had the conversation about you're spending X. If you're foolish enough to spend X pounds on the high street buying an overly sugared drink from a retail chain which has a chino at the end of it, and you would be prepared to pay an extra 1p to have combustible packaging, and actually that in those cases the corporation should be able to take those decisions. That's what they need to do to be sustainable and to be to lead the conversation.
Well, I do think their financials are beginning to show.
They are
the strain of it, and that is why they're like Heinz, where we were talking about building all these things, because that their figures are beginning to.
But go back to the sugar conversation. It's like that 10 percentage point move that we've seen this year. That's seismic.
It's huge.
Look. Let's say there's an error. There's marginal data error in that. It's 3,000 people, nationally representative sample. It's a big old group. It's a serious issue now. And consumers are going to start to vote with their feet.
But what do you think will happen to these big corporates? Do you think it will really... Do you think they're going to go the way of Woolworths or anything like that?
No, they do exactly what they've... Unilever recently sold their margarine business because they realised it was not going in the right direction. And what they do is they divest of one thing to a group of private equity people or another group of people, and they will buy other stuff. So in the end, Unilever and these kind of corporations can trade in and out, and they will acquire the Yous of this world and the real ketchups of this world and the Dashes or the whoever it happens to be, because they think they align with their brand purpose. If they can copy it, they will copy it. But if they feel the only way to get there is acquisition, they'll get there through acquisition.
And is that because they've got a huge stable of brands that actually is going to protect them? Because in essence, they've got dozens and dozens and dozens of brands, and therefore they can just trade in and out, get rid of them, do this, do that, the other. Whereas sometimes, obviously, if you've got bricks and mortar and people aren't going to see you, then you're going to die pretty quickly. And if you look at Marks and Spencer's, you can see that's what's happening there.
Yeah, and there's that famous chart that's knocked around a lot, which is that there are about 7 corporations that control like 80% of the world's food.
See, I want to scream.
I know, but you know that chart where they've got Unilever and they've got Heinz and they've got Nestle and Procter and Gamble and a whole series of others, and you see all these brands, and some of them are great brands. Like Amoy or some of the Unilever brands. I mean, there are some food brands in there that you kind of go,
not many.
Twinings. There are certain brands that have roles in the British stable household, portfolio, but there are a lot that don't.
And actually, that's one of the reasons for setting Almond up as a foundation, is because it can never be acquired, and it will always remain impartial, and we'll have a separate committee of individuals who will drive the agenda for it, who will have a finite term.
It'll never be acquired, no matter how much.
It can't be, yeah. Foundation.
A bit like blockchain, really. Well, again, you're protecting it, aren't you? So that it can't. It's got legacy.
So actually, we Almond is built on a blockchain platform.
There you go. See,
yeah.
How clever was I when I said that?
Blockchain. We had blockchain referenced on this program for a long time.
No, we haven't. We haven't.
It's actually a distributed ledger called Hedera Hashgraph, which is it's a new type of blockchain. It's not technically a blockchain, but it's a more efficient, more affordable platform.
So in terms of FactWater then, so that's Fact, FACT, where can people go and find out more about that and more about this platform if they want to go and buy?
So we've literally just launched Fact, and we're launching into Whole Foods next month. And then we're going out at the moment into schools and universities and colleges, so through food service. And with regards to Almond, they can find out more at almond.io.
How do I spell that?
Almond like the nut.
Almond. Nut.
Yeah, Almond, ALMOND. And then we that's just literally, we've got the proof of concept live with Fact. You can actually download on the App Store and on Google Play the Almond app and buy a can and scan it. And we've got a deal on at the moment where the first 20,000 users you get £1 of credit if you scan a can. So you get the can for free, basically.
And where can somebody go if they would like to be featured on your platform because they have got this really good sort of purpose behind them?
Yeah, I just there's contact details on the website. But
go on the website.
Yeah, no, but Oliver at almond.io is probably the best way to...
Never give your personal email out. I've learnt that a long time ago.
Bots will now be contacting you saying, we are legitimate. We're just running out of a troll factory outside of Moscow.
Put us on your platform, will you? I'm sure we're going to see lots more of that, Ollie, where people know they can go somewhere and somebody's done all that hard work checking credentials for them.
Yeah, because it's interesting. We did that recent research about what is it that drives consumers' choice. And actually, things like soil association don't rank that high. And, there's that whole thing in the press recently about Red Tractor, which I thought was, again, really interesting. There is a brand mark that theoretically was trustworthy. And basically, it's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of debate about basically they're not checking the way they should be checking. And, you've got basically people misusing what the Red Tractor logo is. So there are obviously lots of people in the Red Tractor Association who are doing what they're supposed to be doing, but there are a lot of people who aren't. And the problem is that, there's there's a phrase about one thing at a pool party ruins a pool party. I'm not going to use that phrase anyway. But in the end, you only need one bad apple, and it's done, isn't it?
Absolutely done. So, thank you very much for joining us, Ollie Bolton. If you haven't tried the watermelon drink, I'd recommend it. I like it.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
That's all right. Got to like watermelons, otherwise probably not your cup of tea. But definitely check out the platform. I think that's going to be an interesting development. Any final comments?
Do you know my only problem with the watermelon?
Where you think the hydration market's going?
Watermelons are just so... I mean, I love fruit, but they're enormous. When you buy a watermelon, you need a lot of people in a household eating a lot of watermelon to get through it. Which is why
that's why it makes a drink.
Why it makes a drink out of it. Yeah. There you go. There's the problem solved.
I've still got a horrible image in my head of you eating a mango in the bath.
I haven't eaten. I was told that you should eat a mango in the bath. I haven't.
I had that image of it. Awful.
Yeah,
thank you very much. You've been listening to the Food Talk Show, syndicated to radio stations across the UK and further afield, as well as being on Podbean, iTunes, and the podcast app. We're on Spotify now, so you can find us there. Thank you to my fellow presenter, Ollie Lloyd of Great British Chefs. Thank you, Ollie.
You're welcome.
Good luck with the British Cheese Awards. Fantastic. And if you want to recommend any future guests, someone doing something groundbreaking in the food sector, get in touch with us via Twitter on @FoodTalkShow, or you can listen to any of our 100 podcasts on foodtalk.co.uk, or via the amazing and wonderful Great British Chefs website. So have a good week. Bye-bye.